We are live. Welcome to Tuesday, everybody.
What's
We're
up,
back.
people? We're back
It's
on the saddle.
we're back in the saddle. It's been a minute.
Yes,
Been
yes.
several minutes.
That's it.
um yeah, today we're going to talk about worth.
Know your worth, understand your worth, value your worth, and know what the worth of someone that's trying to get to know you is. So that's
Yeah.
to me a very good topic.
Yeah. And if you've been tuning in for a while, because we are like now 2.5 years into this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been tuning in for a while, you know that for the last year I've been very, very single and I'm just starting to think about getting out there.
And
And
that's good.
is it?
Not that you were single, but that you're getting out there. Yeah.
Mm. uh and I don't think I don't think that my last partner understood my worth. And we'll just leave it like that.
He didn't understand it, or was it that he didn't value it?
Oh no, it's substantiated that he did not value it. But did he not even know it?
Because some people get it. Some people know your value. They know you're a good catch. They know you're a good person. They
But
know
they're always
you're
looking for a bargain.
right. They know you're a hard worker. They know all the circumstances. But even with knowing everything, they don't value it. They don't like they become selfish and self-absorbed. And when a person is self-absorbed, like they don't value your worth. And that's what you can't allow. No matter what's going on with your partner, they should always value what you bring and who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, that's very important.
One of the things, like a friend of mine, a friend of the show, he posted stuff about worth on Facebook and
Hmm.
about how like a lot of women don't understand their value. And a lot of times when you're in a relationship that's not healthy,
Hmm.
you start doing stuff to keep the peace. You forget about your worth. Hey Swan, how are you? Welcome to the show. You start forgetting like what it is you're there for. And you start doing things to kind of keep the peace. And you lose sight of like your own worth
Hmm.
because it's like, you know what? I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to cook because I don't want to hear about my like what I'm not doing. Like I'm not picking up the slack or whatever. But you
Well,
need that time.
right. And when you do that, when you start doing less for yourself and just worrying about the other person, you're doing yourself an injustice.
Absolutely.
So you can't.
But we've all done it.
Oh yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Especially when, you're running the mommy and daddy show.
Hmm. We've all done it. We've all had those instances where you're dealing with someone, and in order not to have the arguments and stuff like that, you won't talk about certain issues. You won't go over certain situations, and you just basically shut down, or you stop your shine just to let them go, and Now they're feeling good and you're not feeling the way you need to feel. And that happens a little too often. And a lot of people don't get that. Like, you should never just dim your light for someone else.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things where you're like, I I'm gonna like dim my light so that you can't see me, so that you don't pick on me.
Right.
And
Right.
that's when things get like really fucked up.
Right.
Because now it's not even like a particular thing. It's like the overarching. And once it gets to that, I don't care who you are, man, woman, old, young, single, married, committed, not committed. It's time to go.
Yep.
Pack your thing. If you have to turn out your light so someone can't see it, and you're supposed to be in a relationship with them where there's like love and physicality and communion involved, no, it doesn't even matter what the topics of conversation are. You deserve better.
Yep.
You are worth more.
Like, I have even been in situations where I basically wouldn't talk about certain issues because I knew, like, automatically we would butt heads. And I didn't want to butt heads. I didn't want to argue. So I just left it alone. And now your point, your view on situations never come across because you don't want to butt heads, you don't want to disagree, you don't want the argument. So, like, what are you doing there? What do you do in a situation where what you feel is invalued? Why would you be in a situation where your opinion is invalued? What you feel, what your worth is invalued. You don't
Exactly.
you don't need that situation.
It's one of those things like years ago, like years and years ago. Um, I was engaged and we went to some premarital counseling. We never got married because it's pretty much like you'll know why. But we went to this premarital counseling, and the person who was doing the counseling was with a group in church when I pretended to believe in something. But anyway, and
Mhm.
it was like a lot of couples determine who won the argument by who screams the loudest.
Right.
And that is and wrong. Hi, Claire. Claire knows about somebody who thinks that the loudest person in the room always wins the argument, don't you, Claire? But and this is the thing. A lot of times when you dim your light to keep the heat off of you, it's the same thing. It's the same. You are not letting yourself be seen or be heard.
Right. That's
Because
not a good
part of you,
situation at all.
no, and part of you already knows. Part of you absolutely knows that what's going on is bullshit. It's unhealthy. It's somewhat inhumane. And you're just doing it. And why are you doing it?
And the thing is also, in those situations, if you can't be yourself, if you can't speak up, if you can't be true to who you are, it's a lost cause. You're not gonna be happy. You're gonna be you're going to feel some way about your partner. So you might as well figure it out in the early stage so you don't have animosity later on. Because if you don't feel comfortable to express yourself, to talk, to say what you truly are feeling, what kind of relationship is that?
Where you going with it? Yeah.
Right. That is definitely not a true relationship.
And what kind of relationship? What kind, like, there are things. What kind of relationship do you want?
Me, I would want a relationship, honestly, that is built on respect and trust. And respect to me is a lot. And when I say that, I say that to say neither one of us would do things that we wouldn't be comfortable doing in front of the other person. Respect to me is like I wouldn't put you in a situation that is not fair to you. I respect your boundaries. I respect how you what you expect of me, and you respect what I expect of you, and we work at things together. So that's the type of relationship I would definitely want. Respect, trust, and having fun, just enjoying life. That's it.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Like, no question. And I know, like, I've always been the type of partner where I wouldn't do anything behind your back that I wouldn't do right in front of your face.
Right.
But I know that a lot of times, like, if I don't feel like you hear me when I talk to you, I'll talk, but I won't say anything. I'll talk all fucking day,
I
and I
got
won't
that.
say anything.
And people don't get that. People don't
Yeah.
understand what you're saying when you say that. And I know exactly where you're coming from
Well,
because
you
I've
you
been
know me, and you
right.
know that I will do that. Like, I'll
Mhm.
talk about TV, I'll talk about the movies, I'll talk about politics, I'll talk about the kids, I'll talk about fashion, I'll talk about my shoes, but I got nothing to say to you.
Right, right, 100%. And I've been in those situations where we're just speaking to speak, but it's nothing really being said. It's just a conversation, but nothing of substance.
Yeah.
So if you don't have substance, what do you have? We're just talking shit now. We're not really saying anything like, oh, how was your day? What you do? Like, but you really don't even care about the situation. And once you get to that point, I don't even know what a relation if the relationship is worth having. If you're just speaking with no substance, your relationship is in trouble.
Yeah, like your whole week is like, yeah, yeah, how was work? Work was fine.
Right.
Strawberries are on sale at Lidl. They got salmon at ShopRite. Yeah. How
Hmm.
about Aaron Rodgers' Achilles? Yeah, that was fucked up, right? And it's
Mm.
like, I think it's something like the average person spends a couple of hours speaking and only 12 minutes communicating during the course of a day.
Right. I have been on the phone with a person for an hour and change and really never spoke about nothing. And when you're doing that, when you can't open up to the person, when you feel your opinion doesn't matter, when you feel you're just going through the motions, that's not a good thing at all. And when you feel the person doesn't value you,
Yeah.
that's really not good.
When you're not seen, when you're not heard.
Yes, yes. If you're telling someone like you're not comfortable with it, certain situations, or even if you tell someone, like I dealt with a young lady years ago. I used to say, listen, certain things you joke about is not funny to me. And I feel uncomfortable about it. And I feel sometimes in jokes, people put a little truth. So if I'm telling you I'm uncomfortable and I don't feel right about it and you continue to do it, you're not valuing where I'm coming from. So to me, that lets me know exactly how you see me. So if I'm the type that, if you tell me wise, I'm uncomfortable with that, I'm going to completely step away. I may have the conversation and ask you, why are you uncomfortable? What part makes you uncomfortable? What's going on? But after we have that conversation and I know where you're coming from, I respect you enough to back away from that and say, all right, I understand that's a problem. We don't have to deal with that anymore. But if
Exactly.
but if a person can't do that, how much do they care for you? How much do they respect you? Like I'm a funny, you could see in the short time you know me, you could already see certain things that I'm like, hold up, nah, I don't rock with that. Like this girl, like she told me like she would want to watch me have sex with another woman. And
Yeah, no.
no, but I'm like, listen, my thing is I'm not really with that because I'm never gonna sit there and be comfortable watching you have sex with another man.
No.
And
Why
it,
would you be?
right. And she was like, but sex is just sex. And that has been one of my
Not for
fantasies.
everybody.
Right. And she's like, that has been one of my fantasies. It's no big deal. If we don't know the person and we're just in and out, and I'm like, no, that I can't do that because I understand me. And if I know me, once we do it, I would never ever look at you the same.
Exactly.
And after I explained that to her, she still would be like, every once in a while, she would throw the joke out there, oh, the threesome, this and that. And I told
No.
her, I said, all right, we can't even already see what's up with this. Like, we don't have the same mind frame. We don't have the same thought pattern because, especially if I'm telling you I'm not comfortable with this and you continue to bring it up and say it in a form of jokes, like, nah, I know what's up with that. So you don't respect our boundaries. And if you don't respect me, you don't respect our situation. So you do what you got to do, and I'll do what I got to do. And that's it. And she was like, you won't even be my friend? I said, listen, if
You
I see you
can't
in the
be that guy.
right, I said, if I see you in the street, I would never disrespect you, but I'm not going to be calling you to hang out and stuff like that. No, because we had our opportunity and you didn't value what you had. So I already see you look at things in a certain manner. So it's nothing forced there.
Yeah, it was like when I did go to that like church counseling when I was engaged, like I did learn a lot of things that were like faith based.
Mhm.
And even though, I don't, whatever, um, I did learn about like how you have to you have to be, I think it was equally yoked.
Yes. I
Yeah.
agree with that also.
Yeah. It's not,
Excuse me.
I don't generally like quote the Goat Herder's Guide to the Galaxy, but in this particular case, yeah, it tracks. Like I believe that, like, I could never be with somebody who makes it a point every Sunday morning to get up and go to church. I will, if I'm staying at my dad's house and he asks me to go to church with him and I'm there for the weekend, I will get my happy ass up and go to church. But not because I have any desire to go to church. I do feel that my dad made sure I didn't starve to death as an infant, and therefore I should go.
Yeah, you're doing it just for him.
Right. Even though sometimes I'm like, wow, they're still doing that low impact aerobics thing. Sit down, kneel, stand up, kneel, sit down, stand up,
Uh,
stand up, sit down, kneel, stand up, sit down. You get a
mhm.
little low impact workout, you
Yes.
know, mild cardio.
Mhm.
And sometimes somebody throws something at you that makes sense. But that's also, a lot of people base their worth on that. Like if you're not that person that's going to get up and go with them, then they're not going to take a chance on you.
Right.
And my thing is, it's all well and good. From me, don't expect it now. Don't expect it next Tuesday. Don't expect it like, there'll be times if I have a partner in the future and they have like a mom or a dad who has to go to low impact goat herding 101 for an hour, I'll go if that makes them really particularly happy.
Mhm.
But I don't see it ever being for me.
But see, that's to me, that's part of a compromise. That's
It would be
part
a lot of compromise for me.
that's part of valuing your partner.
Yeah.
Like like I'm not a super religious person,
No, no.
but
And we've talked about like your religious upbringing and it was kind of like interesting.
right, but I would go to different situations for different people,
Exactly.
because I value that person. Like I said, my sister was a minister. So because of my love for her, I would go to her church and listen to her preach at times. But it wasn't because
But it wasn't
that
because of
was
God, it was because you had pride in your sister.
right. That
Like, look at
was
her doing her thing up there.
right, 100%. And I'm like, that's all about my love for my sister.
Right.
So so that's one of those situations. And that's because you value someone. If you value someone, sometimes you would go out of yourself to do things for that person, for the love and respect of that person. So I demand, I don't ask, I demand, if this is the way I treat others,
That's the way
that's
you
what I
should treat
demand
me.
I get back,
Yeah.
because I know what kind of person I am. So I know I would go out of my way for a person. So I definitely want someone that would reciprocate. And it doesn't have to be everything I want or every instant, anything of that nature. It just has to be like, you have to show me that you care enough and you respect me enough to say, all right, this may not be my thing, but I know this is his thing. So I'm going to try it with him. I'm going to go out of myself, out of my norm, and I'll do this with him or me with someone else. I'm like, all right, I know I'm not a up early on a Sunday morning person, but I'll do it because this is important to them. And that is valuing a person's worth to me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like, you know that I'm a big sports girl. I like to watch sports and I'm very comfortable watching sports. I know what goes on. That actually came out of respect from years and years ago. Somebody was kind of like, I want you to watch with me. Well, the football thing was like watching with my dad when we were kids because basically, you know, he was only around but so many hours during the week because he worked as many
Mhm.
jobs as he needed to make sure that we were taken care of.
Right.
And, you know, so he had the TV all to himself on Sunday. And for most of my childhood, there was one TV. So if you actually wanted to sit on the couch and do something, you're going to be watching football.
Hmm.
And we weren't the kind of kids that were like, well, if we're going to watch something, we're not going to ask questions. So then I became like really involved with that. But then, like, the whole baseball thing with somebody I dated when I was like in my early 20s, it was like, oh, but you don't like baseball? And I'm like, I don't really care one way or the other.
Hmm.
And then it was like, it was such a big deal that I did that. And then I continued to love it. And then I started like with the auto racing
Hmm.
and I found out all about that. And I really like that. And it's like, and now those are me things. Like, I
Right.
want
So
somebody who's amenable to doing that.
you
But
adopted it for
also,
yourself.
right, right. But I gave the other person the respect to do the things that they needed to do. And one of the things that stands out in my mind is like when my mom passed away, my son was living with this young woman that he was with for several years at the time. I think he
Mhm.
was with her like for almost 5 years at that time. And she wasn't necessarily raised in a religious household. So it was like they're having like a full mass when my mom's funeral. They're not doing like a little service. They're having like a full on communion,
Right.
the whole like the incense and like the whole big thing. And she was like, I don't want to do it. And it wasn't me, but I'm sure I got blamed for it, but it wasn't me. I think it was my youngest sister who was kind of like, girlfriend, just do it. Do not be sitting there while we get up and go like to the altar. If you're part of like the inner circle, just go through the motions. We don't care how you feel. Like right now,
Right.
your feelings are so unimportant.
Just out of respect for you guys.
Well, I don't think she got that. I don't think that she was raised with like a pecking order. You know what I mean?
But even if you're not raised with a pecking order,
Yeah.
you're raised to respect others' feelings and stuff like that. And in a
Mm,
situation like that, where a parent passed away and you're at a funeral or whatever, even if you're not spiritual or whatever, out of respect for the person,
she
I'm
did end
going.
up doing it.
Hmm.
I mean, full disclosure, she did end up doing it. But I remember my son turned around and came back and was like, she was really embarrassed. Really? She felt embarrassed on one of like the most heart-wrenching days of our collective life?
Right. Like,
Oh,
what
who
does that
fucking
matter
who?
that
Here's
she,
the world's smallest violin. Let's play it just for her.
and that's what people don't get. Like, I always say, if you truly care for someone, one of the biggest turn ons for me is a person that truly has empathy for others. Like, I'm not saying you have to be a pushover or anything like that, but as a human being, whether you're black, white, green, yellow, whatever, sometimes you have to put yourself in that other person's place. And and
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and you have to empathize in what they're going through or what they went through. And you don't know what, like I said, working for many years with school safety and dealing with young kids and teenagers, and that job taught me a lot about empathy and about judging people, because I have met kids that people would be like, "Oh, that kid is such a fucking knucklehead," or "That kid is such an ass." But then when you sit and you talk with this person and you find out all the different things they've been through in their young lives, you're like, "Oh my God, I'm shocked they're as good as they are." Because I would have lost my mind if I had to go through this.
Oh, yeah.
So, like I said, sometimes you have to have empathy. You have to try to see and connect with people and understand what's going on, what makes them act the way they act. But
And
now,
everyone is worthy of empathy.
right.
Every single person. And like you worked in school safety, I work with people with developmental disabilities.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, especially people who are high functioning that got diagnosed like later on in their life, you see that like life put them through so much shit
Hmm.
before they got like their diagnosis, before they got their services, before they got like their ability to like live the way they're living now. Like a
Hmm.
lot of the high functioning people were like had serious problems in school. They were like considered behavior issues, or they grew up in foster care and they didn't have anybody like trying to find them solutions for their problems with learning and behaving and acting appropriately. And you know, like there's a guy that I dealt with him like really early in my career, and he was raised in foster care and he had cerebral palsy.
Hmm.
And when he came to me, he was like, I wrote a book. I'm like, you wrote a book? And he's like, yeah, it's a crime procedural and it's a little bit of a erotic thriller. And I'm like, is that the cutest thing? Okay. And I read the book, or I read enough of it to be like, wait, something's wrong here. This guy got an IEP diploma, but he
Hmm.
wrote a book, like a legit could get published book.
Right.
He's in law school now. And it
Hmm.
is not easy to like reverse the things that society does to you when you're like the other. And I'm
Right.
sure you saw that in school safety.
Oh, yes.
Because when you're the other, people who barely know you make a predetermined package of your worth.
Hmm.
They give you They give you some tests. They give you a psychosocial. They do a DDP on you. And there you are for life.
This is who you are now.
This is who you are now. We've known you for a whole whopping 90 days. Wow, we did our homework for this kid. And that's who you are forever. The number attached to your DDP2. Look at
Right.
that. You did it. Really? Is that who you are forever? Like,
But
you know,
people don't get that. People don't recognize certain situations and certain things. And that's what I said. Like when you ask me like the type of person I want, that is definitely one of the situations. Empathy is there. That's high on my list. Because I feel in this day and age, in this cancer culture, enough people don't empathize with one another. People make mistakes. People say things that sometimes they really don't understand. And sometimes you can fix these situations with a simple conversation. Some things could never be fixed because you just have different philosophies and you value life and you see things differently. And like you said, if you're not yoked, if we both can understand or we're not like I do feel on certain issues opposites attract. But then I also feel on more issues you have to be yoked in certain situations. We can't be complete opposites and make this work. So you have to, like I always say, you have to have those conversations. You have to really get your point across and speak your truth. And you have to allow that person to speak their truth. And so many people don't listen. They speak to, they
they speak
speak
at
at,
you.
but they don't listen.
No.
They don't intake what you're saying. And instead of trying to understand, they just want to argue their point. And when that's all you're doing, you're not solving nothing. So then that whole conversation is wasted because you're not trying to understand me. All you're trying to do is prove me wrong. I'm not
Right.
trying to understand you. All I'm trying to do is prove you wrong.
And people get super defensive.
Yes.
Like people who disrespect you get super defensive when you call them on it.
Oh yes, yes.
Like,
I call that the flip the script.
oh well, yeah.
Yes, we there's people that master that. Like you tell them something you're not good with, you feel uncomfortable about it, you feel this need work, and they'll try to flip it on you in a heartbeat. Oh, well, why you like that? Why you feel it? And I'm like, hold up, but I'm telling you what bothers me, and now you're flipping it on me. So that is truly a major situation. And when you run into that, I believe you should run the other way.
Yeah. But a lot of times when you don't know that you deserve, when you know better, you do better in all situations.
Yes, 100%.
But a lot of times when you're in a relationship, you just don't want to. There comes a point where you just don't even have the energy to go at it anymore. I remember wanting to have a conversation for about 3 years.
Wow.
I wanted to have a conversation for about 3 solid years. And I remember telling my friends, telling my sisters that one of these days I'm just going to sit down and have that conversation. Nope, I never did.
And let me tell you, I always say, and I told Sean this, I tell my kids this,
And you probably told me, but
I
I'm a hard
told you,
learner.
I told you. No, one of the biggest things, regrets I had was when I was younger, I never pushed to get my point across. I would be like, forget it. Instead of like following up and speaking my truth and trying to understand, like I said, I even told my ex-wife this. I'm like, you would feel some way, you wouldn't speak to me. I would feel some way, I wouldn't speak to you. So neither one of us knew how the other one was feeling. Both of us was too, I'm not going to say stubborn, but I don't know what it was that we didn't want to take the time to initiate and really say how we was feeling. So now after that, I got to the point, any relationship I'm in, I'm going to sit and let you know exactly what's going on in my mind and how I'm feeling and how I'm seeing things, because I said I would never go through that again. I would never get to a point that I don't express exactly how I feel and how I see things and what's wrong and what needs to be worked out and how we can work it out, because I really felt that was the cause of my first divorce. Lack of communication. If you don't communicate, whether it's a hard truth or whether it's an easy truth, you have to talk. You have to get things off your chest. You have to be open and real.
Yeah.
And like I said, so many people get caught up in, well, I shouldn't have to tell you.
No, you should absolutely have to tell me.
Right, right. A
Tell
person
me
cannot
today,
read your
tell me
mind.
tomorrow, tell me next week.
Right. A person can't read your mind. Not at all. And if you don't express yourself, how is that person going to know? And I even tell my son this, because I have one of my sons. He's a jokester, and he puts things on Instagram and Facebook and stuff sometimes, joking. He says he's joking, but his fiance isn't really cool with it. And I tell him, when a person tells you, I'm not cool with something,
You
respect.
stop.
Right. Oh, but they can't take a joke. But what you feel is a joke, this person isn't cool with it. So you have to respect what this person is feeling. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, I know how you get down. And I know you would be losing your mind that the person didn't listen to you. So you have to respect that person as much as you want the respect. And people don't get that. And that, like you said, that's knowing your worth and valuing the other person's worth and respecting that person's feelings and boundaries and all of the above. So you have to really understand who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with and take it from there.
Like the one thing that I learned in the last I guess since the beginning of the podcast, just about, was that I'm worth taking care of myself. I'm worth putting myself first, because I definitely did not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really, really sick. And it was so funny because, like, when I got COVID, nobody knew what COVID was. So we just thought it was like something. But I felt like I was just about dead. I was out of
Mm-hmm.
work for 3 weeks and I still cooked like every meal. There wasn't even anybody but like, we're going to go get a pizza. If we were going to go get a pizza, I was the one who was going to go get the pizza.
Wow.
I probably exposed like half of Nassau County to
Huh.
COVID at the time in like February of 2020. But now I caught some shit from somebody who I thought was my friend not too long ago. But at this point now, if I know I don't feel well, if I know like I'm feeling like run down, or I got like any of the autoimmune disease symptoms,
Uh-huh.
I'm not going out. And if I even don't feel like 150% and I have plans for the next day that I can't cancel, I'm not going anywhere, because I'm worth that kind of care.
Right.
And on the other hand, there was a couple of things going on this summer that nobody was interested in. And I didn't post it on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. I went and I got myself a meal and I went to like the movie or the concert or the festival or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
all by myself. Because what I want to do is big for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I learned some really hard lessons in the last couple of years. And I don't
Oh,
want to make those mistakes because I deserve to like have the best life.
yes. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids, I tell my friends,
Well, your daughters, you're like really upfront with your daughters and you tell them that like
oh,
you know, they got to
yeah,
look for somebody who's 100% in.
right, right. And my thing with that is I tell my daughters, you have your partner's back, but your partner has to have your back. When you're down, they lift you. When they're down, you lift them. It's teamwork. And and you know me, everything is about respect. And
Yeah.
if you can't respect me enough to fight for me, that says it all. It's just it's just a simple thing to me. And the whole thing is the way a person treats you says a lot about how they feel about you. And a person will only treat you the way you allow them to treat you. So you have to also value yourself. And that's something I tell my kids all the time. Value yourself, love yourself, understand you are important. Because if you don't believe in you, nobody else is going to believe in you. Nobody's going to ride for you. Nobody should ride for you harder than you ride for yourself. Because you got to understand, like, you're important. You're a good person. You're valued. And the number one issue is you must value yourself. I'm not saying you put yourself above everyone else, but sometimes you have to.
One of the biggest things, one of the biggest moments was in my last relationship was like, I guess like in the first year and a half, I had a conversation with that man about worth. We were like in the Applebee's in Coney Island.
Hmm.
And he was like, I don't think you know your worth. And I was like, well, I better. I just invested in graduate school.
That's right.
And he was like, what does that mean? I said, I just invested $60,000 in myself. Don't think I don't know. And it was rough. It's like if anybody, if any 50-year-old woman is out there listening, if you want to completely change careers, not change jobs, completely change careers from being one thing to being something totally different after 50,
Hmm.
be prepared to be tough as nails and pushy as hell. Because it will not come to somebody who's standing there whining about what they deserve. You have to know your worth and you have to chase it. And you have to be patient with yourself. And you have to have an overwhelming belief that the good thing will come if you don't give up. Because it was I'm like, you know what? I'm going to dip into my 401k. That was like year one, I was on unemployment. Then let me dip into my 401k. That was like year two. It was like 4 years before I was making anything that was near livable. I went from
Hmm.
making in 2012, making like $65,000 to making like almost 4 years later, making like $34,000.
Mm.
It cut me in half. And I was like, if I didn't know that I deserved better,
You would have
I
gave
would
up.
I would have totally gave up. But I kept pushing. And one of the people that was like one of the people that was like so key was Sean,
Hmm.
because she was like, we teen moms, we have to stick together.
Hmm.
We have to know who we are. And it's like, if we did that, we could do anything.
That's true.
And she was like, I will never like, there's so few people that just like walk into your life like, no, I'm here. We're like this. And yeah, we totally were.
And that walking in your life and be sincere with it. That's the thing. That's the thing. When you have someone that comes and they're true to their convictions and they're real and honest with you and they really want to see you succeed, that's a rarity.
But that was when she was doing her each one teach one thing then.
Hmm.
And we still don't really know how the connection was made. Somehow somebody forwarded a thing about Sean's teaching the classes for nonprofits. And
Hmm.
I was in graduate school for like community advocacy and nonprofit management and all that. And I called her out of the clear blue sky. And I'm like, hi, I want to take your class. She's like, nobody's ever called me before to take my class. I'm like, well, I'm calling you. And she goes, it's $100, but don't pay me because I don't know if I have enough people. So when I get a couple of other people, I'm going to call you back. I'm like, oh, okay. And then we talked like for an hour on the phone, because you can talk to Sean for an hour on the
Oh
phone,
yeah,
like
yeah,
in a blink of an eye. It's
right.
like, where'd the hour go?
Hmm.
And where 2 hours go, 3 hours go. But anyway, and so like, I don't know, month, 6 weeks later, she calls me. She's like, "Hi, it's Miss Headley." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, you." I'm like, "Sure, I'll take your class." And then because I was getting my master's in that shit, then I went to the class and I was like, she was like, "These are the rules." And I was like, "And these are like the policies." So then I would just show up at all her classes and I would
Hmm.
make people like, you know, well, you've been to the Barbara and Sean show, so
Oh yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's what we do. But it was like, sometimes that's all you need.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And even though it's Sean and we both love her like with our whole heart, but it could have been anybody.
Hmm.
Or maybe not actually, but yeah, you need somebody who's kind of like, this is not a disaster. This is not,
Right.
because my dad was like, there's plenty of nonprofit organizations. Why don't you send them a resume? I'm like, I sent 1,000 resumes.
And that's deep.
And
That is deep. And like I said, when you're dealing with situations and you're dealing with people, empathy, trust, and respect are three major issues. And you really have to really delve into what you want, how you see things, and your perspectives on life, love, whatever you're trying to deal with. And people have to understand that this is so important, and in knowing your worth and understanding your worth and valuing your worth is everything. That is so important because, like I said, if you don't understand your worth, even if the next person knows what you're worth, they're not going to respect it because they see that you don't even understand your worth. So you have to know the type of person you are, the type of person you want it to be treated like, and you have to deal with it accordingly.
yeah, because it's not it's not one of those things that if you ignore it, it's just going to go away.
Not at
You have to
all.
be willing, like, you have to be willing to fight for it. Because if you can't fight for yourself,
There you go.
yeah. And you have a light for a reason. There's a lot of people in the world. Not everybody has that, like, that light. When they walk into the room, it's like,
Hmm.
and if you do have it, you're really, really lucky. And don't let it go out for some stupid person that couldn't possibly find another you.
That is 100% true. And the funniest thing with that is, like, my kids always told me that, like, Dad, for some reason, people are just drawn to you. And I'm like, because it's the type of energy I give out. And when you
Yeah,
give out the
you have
correct,
such beautiful energy.
right, when you give out the correct energy, like I said, you don't have to agree with everybody all the time, but people know you're a genuinely good person. People know what you're about. And so that's why I always say you have to demand what you receive. Don't ask for it, demand it. Because people will try to take all your energy and not invest in you. So you better invest in yourself and understand your importance and understand your worth. And with that being said, like even with my daughters, I tell them, like, one of my daughters is single, and I tell her all the time, and her sisters, her friends are like, yo, you're hard on guys. And I tell her all the time, stay hard on guys because you know what you're worth. Don't settle for nothing. I'm telling her, I won't tell her like, oh, don't date somebody because they're not a millionaire, nothing like that. But you also know, don't take no BS from no one. If a person's trying to game you, let them know you know how to play the game better. And
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. Value yourself. That's so very, very important to value oneself. 100%.
It's that time.
Yes. It's that time. It's always a pleasure, Miss Barbara.
Always, always. Next week, I believe
Mm-hmm.
we're going to talk about what do you do when somebody's crushing on you?
Run.
No, that's not the answer we're looking for.
Okay. So what do you do when someone's crushing on you? That's next week.
Yeah, or you're crushing on somebody. Like how do you proceed?
Okay, that sounds good. I look forward to that one. That
Okay.
sounds like fun.
All right.
All
And
right.
hopefully everything will go smooth, okay?
Yes, yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank everyone for tuning in.
Thank you all.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Later.